Welcome, everybody. Welcome once again to Building Stuff with Nova. We are live and direct, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube and our familiar home of Twitch. Shout out to everybody that is coming to this place that we refer to as your virtual mastermind, makerspace, ideation laboratory, the place where you and Dr. Nee, that's what I go by, can hang out and build together. I'm so happy to have y'all with me. I'm excited because we got another great guest on the way. But first, let me see who is in the chat. Please do me a favor and let me know if you are here, whether or not this is your first time or you are a returning member of the building committee. I need to see an exclamation point in the chat. Can you give me an exclamation point? Some people may be walking. Some people may be at work trying to keep it on the low. Some people may just be chilling and, hanging out with us as you do on a normal basis. But regardless of the situation, I need to know, who do we have with us today? Again, whether you are on YouTube or you are on Twitch, let me know, who do we have? We have Wanagi. Cheers. We see you. We see you. Matt. Yes. Exclamation point. Herself is in the building. We got Nova, of course. How are you doing, Nova? Let us know how you're doing. Always here, present to welcome our community. Shout out Captain Paul, Entropic. Look like we might have a couple of people on Twitch that are coming over from the great community of our guest today, RockItSage. But let me see who we got on YouTube. Shout out to the people on YouTube. We got our friend, that Opal guy. Blue Lobster, is so great to see you. Returning as always. I love it. Marissu, yes. Y'all, check this out. This is going to be a great stream. I can already feel it through the emotes, through the exclamation points in the chat. I need y'all to understand that this is something we've been doing for several weeks now. And before I get into my agenda, I want you to know that there is something really, really exciting happening at the end of October. Yes, at the end of October, it will be what we are considering the finale, the climax, the pinnacle, if you will, of Building Stuff with Nova. And that will be a 4-part engineering themed escape room. Now, I don't know if you all are familiar with escape rooms, but they are really fun, a lot of different puzzles. But we have been designing, for those who have been here, we spent time ideating, building, and yesterday we actually had a virtual field trip into the warehouse of our partners, Trapology, who is actually constructing the escape room as we speak. And we have an application. This is the good news. This is where you come in. An application, everybody, where you, that's right, Broken Symmetry, an application for you to apply to be one of the players in real life of our escape room. Here's how it's going to work. If you go ahead and look at the link, we got Nova dropping it in our Twitch right now. And if you're on YouTube, now's a good time to also come over to the Twitch channel for a moment. We don't want to take you completely from YouTube, but on the Twitch channel, there is an application that allows you to put your name in a hat to be one of the players that we will allow, not just allow, but we will fly to Boston, put you up in a hotel. You'll meet the rest of the team that's also going to be a part of your compadres, as I have been on the stream, to help save the world, as the narrative in our escape room goes, from the hazards and the dangers of Y3K. That's right. It's a Y3K themed escape room where we have the task, myself and those who will be selected to come in person, to really help retrain the algorithm, the AI that we're dependent upon in the year 3K, in order to save the world. And I believe you can save the world. If you think that is a dope opportunity, I need y'all to do me a favor and say dope in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Twitch. I need you to know that this is dope, and I need to know how you feel about it. And more importantly, I want to encourage you to click on the link in Twitch, submit your application so that we can see if you're going to meet us in Boston. If that is dope, I love it. Muga thinks it's awesome. Yes, Entropic. Yes, we got a lot of people who feel like that is going to be a great opportunity. Matt, we'll be looking for your application. All right, we'll be looking for your application. Marissu, again, if you're on YouTube, you can see where you see the Twitch link. Nova just dropped it, twitch.tv/Nova Building Stuff. You can come over to Twitch. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a follow too. Like while you're in the Twitch and you see in the chat, hit the follow. We're eyeing 700 followers there on Twitch. But I want you all to understand that Boston is where it's going down. Boston is where it's at the end of October for our finale. And I love that you all love it so much. Yes. Interceptor says AI has no heart. Yes. Well, it is our goal to make sure that we are able to safely depend upon it beyond the year Y3K. All right. So y'all know the deal. That's what it is. That's what's going down. We see the chat coming. Continue to look for that link. But let's bring up our agenda for today, because I want you all to know what we have going on today. Today is going to be a special stream. We have another special guest, as we like to do very frequently here on Building Stuff with Nova. And our guest today is none other than RockItSage. Now, if you know anything about RockItSage, I got a feeling some people in our Twitch chat do. I need y'all to drop some love for RockItSage. We're going to bring this to do a formal introduction here in just a second. But what we're going to be doing, as the title implies, both on YouTube and on Twitch, what can you build with rocks? Now, they are very, very talented and insightful geologists that we're going to bring on, but we're going to try to integrate some of my background too as a structural engineer. Things I know a little bit about construction. I don't really know how this thing is going to unfold because I haven't seen all of the rocks that are in store. But if anybody knows anything about RockItSage, you know that you will be thoroughly impressed. And then, of course, I'm going to close the stream, letting you know what's to come for the rest of the week and beyond. But without further ado, as I see the bridges, the faces, the emotes, all of the good questions coming in, I've seen rocks. I know they're all right, cool. Well, here it is. RockItSage, our guest. Yes, a geologist, as I already said, university instructor, gamer, and science communicator. Her channel provides earth science education in a casual way to break through misinformation and teach people about the geologic processes. She is a sedimentary geologist with expertise in diagnosis, carbon capture and storage, and petrography, scanning, electron microscopy, and field geology. Now, with that being said, as everyone is already excited, we see you on YouTube, we see you Twitch. I need y'all to do me a favor as I get a couple of the vibes going here again, as I introduce to people who may not know her here on Building Stuff with Nova, but also present to others our incredible guest of today, none other than Alyssa at RockItSage.
Hey everyone.
Alyssa, how was that introduction? Did I do it justice? Like, you know, I know I.
Oh yeah.
It was
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Oh yeah,
cool.
That was great. That was fine. That was fantastic.
Awesome. The love is coming in. Shout out to now. You recognize any of these folks in the chat? I think these are some of your people.
Oh yeah. Because one of my best friends, we actually met because of my live streaming. Early on, I'd say, I don't know, 8.5 years ago or so.
80.5 years ago.
eight and a half. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, are we talking metamorphic like time or like, you know?
No. 80 years. It does feel that way. But Captain Paul, he's an excellent geologist that is on the board of directors for MNDAT.org. There's scientists in here. There's regulars. There's all sorts of folks just interested in geology that I recognize from the community. Absolutely. Thanks for being here, guys.
Absolutely. And I'm just super happy that you are here, Alyssa. And I can call you Alyssa, right? I can use to interchange you with RockItSage. What is, you know, I want to get into the rocks here. We're going to show our first rock here in just a little bit. But what is the origin of the name RockItSage?
That's a really good question. And it's because I'm a musician, and I realized that my first major was music theory, and I realized I've always loved the sciences, always loved math and chemistry and all these. And I was like, well, I switched to geology, obviously did that path, and I realized because of my love for both, because I still write music, and I, you know, obviously do a ton of geologic stuff. So I thought rocket, because I'm a musician and a geologist, so I rock it.
You rock it, yes, I got you.
Right. And I decided to use the alias Sage to best protect myself. And then after so many years of doing this, at some point my real name's now very known. So it's fine.
I love the play on words. You rock, as we have on the stream, and everybody is loving it as well. Wayne Gotti laughed at our joke earlier, where some of us are a tad ancient here, just saying, when we were talking about the timeline. But we're going to get straight into the rocks, though, because we have a couple of rocks to get through, many of which I have not seen yet. And I want to go ahead and ask you, where are we starting with today, Alyssa? What are we starting with? What is on the screen right now?
On the screen is marble. This is actually collected by myself. I mapped briefly for the USGS for about a 6-week mapping project, and then there was a year in which we had to write a paper and whatnot. But this is one of my favorite experiences because it was the first time I'd really been thrown out into the field without any guidance from anybody who had more information than me. So this is one of my first projects that I legitimately got to do. And I collected so many different things. Of the things collected, I'll show you some little garnets I have just because they're pretty. But the marble here is what I wanted to focus on for the rock and what you can do with it. And I thought this is a great sample to pick. It's just one of my favorites. It has a great story, and I'll happily tell that story when you feel it's the best time.
Well, listen, I want to hear the story in just a little bit, but I can automatically start thinking about a number of things when it comes to buildings and structures, when it comes to marble. Obviously, like you all know, when you're trying to look out for that new home or apartment, whatever, you're looking for the marble finishing, right? You're looking for the desktop, and you see some of this light marble. It's a beautiful one, but isn't there have you ever seen the darker? It's like a black. Is there like a black marble as well?
I have never personally heard or seen a true black marble, but it is possible that there could be something that is an inclusion that's trapped within the rock that's giving it a different color than what just the basic building blocks of this rock basically are. So it's pretty much just white because it's made of a mineral called essentially calcite. Turns into a sedimentary rock called limestone. That limestone is metamorphosed, and we have marble. And you see there's some reddish banding in here.
Okay. Yeah, right there.
Anytime you see that kind of orangish red or maroon, or even light oranges, all the way from light orange to red to maroon, that actually indicates there's some kind of iron content in the mix typically. And it gives us those colors. So I know at the band, there's some banding of some kind of mineral that was trapped in the formation of this rock that also had iron in it, which gives it that nice orange band throughout, which I really appreciate as well.
That's dope. And one of the things I want to bring up really quickly, and I want to hear the story. You guys show some love. We got a poll on the screen. Go ahead and drop your poll. One of the things people may notice about marble, particularly when it comes to structural projects, and let me show this real quick. You would notice that a lot of it has to do with indoor type finishing, like countertops and things of that nature. Very rarely is marble going to be used outdoors for some heavy load bearing aspects of a building. And that's because it is not as hard as some of other types of rocks, but it's very beautiful, right? And that picture I just showed that you all probably just saw, the black picture, that's what I was thinking when you were saying black, when I was asking you about the black marble. But you go in and you see the nice little finishing and everything, and that's where it's more likely used. But if it was outside, Alyssa, the acid rain can really weather it over time. Related to some of the other types of maybe stones that exist in more low bearing applications. But again, this is an incredibly beautiful stone and rock that we use a lot, that adds a lot of value to a lot of interior spaces. So I think that's pretty dope that you have a piece right there. You have a piece right there with you.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And it's actually pretty hefty. I didn't expect it to be so dense. But you have to imagine something that's been metamorphosed basically means it's been subjected to tons of heat and pressure such that it never actually melts, but it literally recrystallizes in the solid state. So while being solid, atoms are moving around, rearranging, and becomes a new rock. And that's really just what metamorphism is. Okay. So you're going from one rock with a certain amount of elements in them. In this case, calcium and carbon are a big one. Calcium and carbon dioxide are big components that from the mineral calcite. And when they're compressed like this, it becomes much more dense than its previous parent, the limestone, because you're squishing all this stuff together. And so it therefore is much heavier than its predecessor.
Right.
And I love the different colors you can get in marble. Back to the black marble. Black marble is either very, very rare or I've never seen it in person, but I do know that it exists. It's just not as common, I think, as lighter colors. I found some blue marble that was really pretty.
Oh, you saw some blue marble before? Oh my goodness!
It had a very light powder blue tint to it in marble. It was gorgeous. There was so little of it, I didn't want to take any. I wanted people to be able to enjoy it.
Well, let me ask you, what's the story? Tell me the story that you had about marble that we can hear.
So this guy, I'm hiking around in the southern Sierra Nevada. So you have to imagine the mountains I'm hiking around in. I'm literally hiking around in old solidified magma chambers that are now uplifted and exposed. So we literally can walk through them. So if you drive east or west through the Sierra Nevada, which is a huge range in California, you are literally driving through a magma chamber, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
So it starts with volcanoes. So volcanoes started forming about 200 million years ago, roughly, started creating the Sierra Nevada. Different parts of the Sierra Nevada were more active at different times, but really active began 210 million years ago, roughly. In the middle somewhere, there was a huge volcanic boom phase, and then it died around 70 million years ago. And during that process, we call these mountain building processes orogenic events, if you want the fancy term.
Yeah.
But they're just mountain building processes, right? So you've got these mountain building processes that form, and as they're pushing this material up, well, this is forming in California. And if you didn't know, California was a nice tropical, Bahama-like, calm sea along, the tropics, based on where the location of the continent was at the time. And so it was depositing all this. It was a shallow marine environment, depositing all these shallow marine organisms with calcium carbonate-rich shells. Die, and they litter the seafloor. All these shells collect over millions of years. And it was about almost 600 millions of years. We had this beautiful, calm, quiet beach. And then 200 million years ago, it starts to uplift out of the ocean. And most of the material did get removed or destroyed, but there were pieces throughout the entire Sierra that you could find at the tops of peaks of these old oceanic materials that have been squished up and into these kind of oval shapes we call inliers. It doesn't really matter the term so much. It's just that they're old rock from a previous environment. So things change so much geologically. We went from a tropical and shallow marine environment to a volcano suddenly lifting out of the sea onto the continent of North America and starting to form, California. And so all this
crazy
old shallow marine material, if it hadn't been metamorphosed, for example, into marble, we would see fossils in it.
Right. So
a lot of those fossils can still be found out in Mojave, in the desert of California.
How did you get into the position to where you were able to explore these areas though?
Hard work.
There we go. So you are, chat. Hard work. But I mean, was there a program? What allowed you to find yourself here?
So I very much, I am a very, very, very passionate person about learning. And that drove me to find a variety of different projects. And not only during my master's did I work with my thesis and my area of expertise, but I also worked with another advisor. He wasn't my advisor,
okay,
but I did several side projects with him. So I did this USGS mapping project, but it was with no guidance. Basically, it was led by myself and one other grad student. And I was supposed to be the lead on the project, but I was also involved in 2 other side projects on top of doing my master's. And I just basically never left campus, but I loved it. I was always doing something about learning things in the field geologically or in the lab, or the fact that you can do both, or one or the other depending on your area of interest. It's just, I can't stop. I'm constantly expanding into other niches of the geosciences.
A true passion you found there. A true passion.
Oh yeah.
Got you. Well, hey, everybody, show some love to Alyssa for already opening us up with the marble, something we all know a lot and love. And I'm curious to know, what is the next rock we have to share? You all dropping it in there. What's the next rock we have to share here, Alyssa?
Oh, I do actually have a question about marble.
Oh, you had a question for me? Museum, okay, cool.
Yeah, is the Getty Museum, is it predominantly made out of marble?
Say that one more time.
is the Getty Museum in California. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And actually, I don't want to. This is why we have Nova. Shout out to Nova. It's the Getty Museum predominantly made out of marble. Let's get that. Nova is hanging out with us in the chat. We want to get a quick FYI, or not FYI, a quick question answered by Nova. Here's one thing I do know. That not all marble is real marble. I think we all kind of know that, right? Like whenever there's like some sort of like amazing like architectural material, there's always going to be sort of that economic push to say, hey, can we get it to look like that but not actually be that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And there are a lot of times when there's like a facade created where it's like maybe much like how you have maybe even like gold plated things and things that are like plated in some way, but like through and through is not the same thing. I know that they do a number of those things when it comes to architectural finishes as well. So while you may have a nice little marble looking component or member in a structure, it may not be marble through and through. But that's a good question, by the way, Alyssa. I do want to know.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I've always just been so curious because it is a very weak rock when it comes to the elements, because naturally occurring rain is already slightly acidic at 5.6, right? Acid rain being more like at a 3. But this guy, I always wondered if the Getty was made out of marble. It was like, do they coat it? How do they have that withstand the weathering? Because that's some beautiful architecture.
Exactly.
I've always had that question, but I digress. And
no, that's exactly what I meant when I was talking about how a lot of cases it's not always used outside. Like it's very often used on the inside because of, like you said. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put up this screen and see what the people are guessing. And by the way, Nova's going to get us that again about that particular museum. But what is the next rock? Y'all, what do you all want to see next? They're showing some love and they are dropping some facts in YouTube. But the question we have is, what is the next rock? Alyssa.
So I think I just want to show this garnet. This is also just some stuff that
we're losing you on the mic, by the way. We definitely want to get the mic closer to you. I think we're losing you.
I'm so sorry. I know better. I need to talk into these beautiful kind of mics.
No worries.
So this is actually a pretty chunk of garnet that I found. It's, most people know what garnet is. It's a pretty common mineral, and basically 2 or more minerals make up rocks. And that's, so we're looking at kind of the most traditional colored, that deep reddish, brownish, almost black sometimes.
Say it again. Did you say garnet, or what'd you say? Garnet rock. Okay.
So this is I thought was a quartzite. I believe this is actually a pegmatite. So it's igneous, basically from lava. It's solidified from lava, and in it, these larger minerals were able to form just because of the rate at which it was cooling and the fact that there were certain chemicals there to allow it to cool slow enough to make these bigger crystals form. I just thought it would be nice and interesting to show. This was also in the Sierra Nevada where I was mapping, and there were tons of beautiful minerals. So if you ever are interested in rock hounding, there is a lot of information about that. Anyway, I think the next one.
Quick question about the garnet though, and can you put it back up there? You said
absolutely.
You said it was the igneous rock. Is it like always the case found in igneous rock, or is it also like? Nope. Okay, so we can find. Go ahead.
Garnet's a really good index metamorphic mineral, which means depending on the metamorphic mineral, in this case garnet, it can give you a sense of the pressure, temperature conditions based on the minerals present in that metamorphic rock.
Yeah.
So it basically tells you like, hey, it was this hot and there was this much pressure based on the type of rock, but the minerals present. So it just helps us. Some are more temperature formed, some are more pressure formed, some are both. Some are low temperature pressure, high temperature pressure, and we can use these well-known minerals that are taught in undergrad to determine, some basic just conditions just off seeing that mineral right alone in a metamorphic rock.
Gotcha.
So it's very scientifically useful. Very scientifically useful.
Got it. Well, from a building perspective, I don't believe that garnet rock is used much in like actual construction materials. But I would say that a lot of rocks like this, because of how how durable they are. They could be used for like a lot of like cutting material, like a lot of abrasive tools, right? Because usually, like, you know, if we're gonna like chisel out rocks and things like that, we need something that's more durable than the rock that we're chiseling, that can actually withstand sort of the pressure that we're putting it under in order to like make the cuts that we need to make. So I think it's pretty dope that you brought that one out. Y'all see that? You see that? Everyone's tripping. This is going to Garnet a lot of accolades, they said. Jawa jury said.
All the geology puns.
Geology puns. Okay, but you about to show another one. I don't want to slow you up. I know you're about to show something else.
So banded iron formations. Sorry, banded iron formations. Oops.
Say that again. Say that again so we can hear you.
Banded iron formations.
Ah, beautiful.
Just pull this software up. Oops. Yeah, I want to change the lighting a little bit. I don't have my normal lighting set up in here.
That looks really good, though. It looks really good to me. And this is not a metamorphic rock. This is a...
This has actually been partially metamorphosed.
Partially?
Originally,
okay.
It was sedimentary. But originally, it was sedimentary. It's basically layers of iron oxide.
Yeah.
So the iron oxide would be the metal portions here. Let me zoom in a bit differently so you can see that kind of... See how metallic gray and shiny that is. It's extremely almost sparkly.
Yeah.
This is it's a rock called specular hematite. It's just an iron oxide. So that just means just has iron and oxygen. So for a long time, Earth was not saturated with oxygen. And the great oxygenation event about 2.5 billion years ago, very old, but considering the Earth's 4.6 billion years old, it's about roughly half its lifespan if you want to round or so. And a lot of the iron on Earth wasn't bonded to oxygen because there wasn't iron around or oxygen around.
Yeah.
So a lot of oxygen littered the seafloor, along with the first life on Earth, cyanobacteria. They formed around 3.9 billion years ago. So they're the oldest of old critters that could have existed, which is really interesting.
Wow.
And they are actually still around today. They are most prolific in areas where they were first thought to be forming in one of the locations off of the top of my head is actually in and around Australia. This is one of the first locations they were thought to be forming when they started. But they actually photosynthesize. Cyanobacteria photosynthesize. So eventually, as it is often known, not always, but often known, that photosynthesis produces oxygen. And thus, as at first the ocean started to oxygenate, and eventually the atmosphere was able to oxygenate, and as that oxygen became more and more prolific in Earth, that iron started bonding with the oxygen. And we have evidence of that. We have evidence of the great oxygenation event by these banded iron formations. Other layers,
and that refers to like the bands, again, the stripes across it. Like that's what you mean by banded.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Like sparkly bacon.
Sparkly bacon.
And it's forbidden bacon. Don't eat it, please.
Yes. Don't lick it. They did a poll earlier about licking rocks. Yeah. Don't eat this, please.
There's this reddish layer here. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit and get a better. There we go. It's this reddish layer also has iron in it, but it's also because of that cyanobacteria I mentioned. It has always been littering the seafloor since it's been around, and it kind of creates an oozy, muddy mixture on the ground. So iron is mixing into that, creating layers of just iron, creating layers of just this seafloor oozy material called chert. Yeah. So you have chert with iron in it and iron oxide. Chert with iron in it, iron oxide, over and over and over. And it is more complex than that. But for the sake of time, this is the basics of the banded iron formation. And it does represent the great oxygenation event. Man. And no, these are no longer forming today because the oxygen, of course, is now fully saturated enough that the iron has been, oxygenated. It's all been oxidized, rather. That's the better word to use.
Well, listen, when you said iron, and this gets to the structural engineering correlation.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because iron is exactly what is extracted to be able to be put into structural material known as steel. Like that's actually what we put. So basically the iron is extracted from these formations and is essential for producing steel, which is used in like a lot of our skyscrapers, our bridges, and a lot of our major infrastructure. And steel is everywhere. Steel is one of the more popular like materials used for our buildings. And so whenever you see like a steel structure, like I'm showing on the screen right now, or any of these massive beams, a lot of this can be attributed, I think, in some cases. And there's a lot of other processes involved, but a lot of this can be contributed to really extracting from these formations. So I didn't even know what you just shared about the banded iron formation and the great oxidation. What is it again? The oxidation event?
The great oxygenation event, right?
Ah, yes. And still, like, without turning this into a completely structural engineering stream, like, still does amazing things when you kind of like change the properties and the iron that's in it and things of that nature, which really just makes it like a small percentage of carbon and other elements, manganese, and a lot of other things. Like, it's a lot of chemistry involved in that.
What are the top two things that go into steel? Iron and what else?
Iron and top two. That's a good question.
Is it copper or tin? I think it's one of those two, if I remember.
I don't think it's copper. That's another good question. We're gonna put.
Don't.
No. You're good. You're good. This is why we have Nova, because we're building with Nova. Nova, what are the top two things that go into steel? Let's drop in carbon. That's what I want to say. I want to say carbon. Somebody says carbon. Nova can fact check for us, but I want to say carbon. But yeah, that's a really good question. We got it coming in. Yep, carbon is coming in. Thanks. Shout out to the chat on Twitch, and if you're on YouTube, that Opal guy, everybody hanging out on YouTube, we're also on Twitch right now, where we want to get your follow, and we would love for you to see what we got pinned over there when it comes to our finale. But anyway, back to you, Rocket. What do we have next coming up here on your end?
I also wanted to say this is slightly magnetic, which I thought was interesting, and it is. Banded iron formations are economically the biggest resource for iron, like you mentioned. And I just thought, I just happened to find that out today.
Yeah.
Just like rereading some of my stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. But there's so much more I could say about this guy. But we're going to keep it short because I do have a lot of samples. And even if we don't have time to get through them all, that's okay. But the next one I want to show you is actually from a national park, safely and it was legally collected before it was illegal to take samples from the park by a much older geologist. Okay. And it was handed down as a gift.
It made it within that window. It made it within the window.
Right. So please don't collect rock samples from national parks.
Okay.
And that I think is pretty well known, but I like to reiterate that. So this is a piece of. So we did talk about the Sierra Nevada earlier. Yellowstone is within the Sierra Nevada National Park.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And this is one of the main three rock types that make it up. Most people think that the Sierras are just granite. And I think it's because geologists call them granitic. And that's, a pretty common use term. So all this really means is it's an igneous rock. It cooled underground because you can actually see crystals. So all those little dots of the darker colors versus the lighter colors, those are all different crystals. The biggest one being this chunk here. So that's actually one big mineral or crystal called feldspar, which actually makes up, this is the most common mineral in the Earth's crust, are the group of feldspars. This is one of many. And this guy, he looks tricky. He looks like granite. And they both do solidify underground from magma. Right. But they're slightly different. And the way we classify them, this is technically, just for the sake of the term, is granodiorite.
Okay. It's
really not too important other than there's a lot of quartz, there's a lot of feldspar, and there's very little of the darker material. When it comes to classifying igneous rocks, the ones that solidify from lava and magma, it's actually kind of interesting and pretty easy. One of the things we look at is texture, but the other thing is simply the color of the minerals in there and how much is dark and how much is light. We look at the light colored minerals versus the darker colored minerals and determine a rock type without microscopy. Of course, if we want a very
you can really get really
right,
on a microscopic level. Yeah. Okay.
Right. That's kind of how we would do that. So because this sky has a lot of lighter coloration, and because I know those minerals are what they are, I know it is what it is. And of course, it was collected by a very, very excellent geologist. The thing I find the most interesting is this big crystal. This material took so long to cool that a big crystal was actually able to form. And that crystal was forming for a longer period of time than the rest of the surrounding rock, which are much smaller. And if you look at some of these, so this is a littler crystal here, and there's another one here, and another one here, and then a bunch of other stuff just kind of dotting around. But this one is the big nice piece here. Yeah. And it basically just represents those magma chambers I mentioned. This is essentially a piece in and around near Half Dome, which is a big piece of rock. And the reason it's carved into the shape of Half Dome, if you haven't seen it, it's literally a half of a dome shape. And it's actually because of glaciation that happened later.
Really?
After the Sierras formed, right? So those big, just glorious U-shaped canyons in the valley itself in Yosemite, those are because of glaciers. Glaciers act like giant pieces of sandpaper. They pick up every size rock, every size piece of sediment, and they flow much, much, much slower than, of course, a river would flow. But if you were to time lapse or have seen a time lapse of a glacier, it actually flows, and underneath just continues to scrape along. And you can see evidence of this with grooves and striations. So these just basically, they look like giant scratches in the rock, linear scratches.
But that's part of what makes it beautiful. That's part of the experience. There's a metaphor in there, I feel. You're right. Those scratches.
Right.
Let me get clarity really quick. Was this in Sierra Nevada National Park or Yosemite? Where did you?
So Yosemite is in the Sierras.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the Sierra Nevada being the mountain range in California.
Right.
Yosemite is there, and the Sequoias is also there.
Got it. Let me ask this, because I want to get to your next one. And as you go ahead and bring us to the next one, though, what I'm curious to know, though, is a little bit more about your journey as a science communicator on Twitch, right? Like, you were very instrumental in really carving out this whole science and technology community on Twitch. And I want to ask you that in transition, because if that was Granted, I would have had a lot more to say structural engineering wise, because it looks a little bit like, but it's not. Well, go ahead.
It's essentially similar enough to Garnet.
Similar,
structurally, okay. I suspect it would be very. They would probably. Both be used in a similar capacity.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit about your history as a science communicator, really quick. I do want to hear that, particularly on Twitch.
I was on Twitch. I loved gaming. I grew up PC gaming since I was a little girl. And I never really grew up much on consoles, but I played Diablo, the Warcrafts before WoW came out, the Starcrafts, all those really old school games. Yeah. And I then fell in love with scary games, but I couldn't play them alone because I was so terrified that I just would get so scared and panicked, and the adrenaline rush was so much. And my friends, so I'd have my friends watch me and sit, and they'd just be laughing. I'm like, what is so funny? Yeah. They're like, your reactions. So I'm like, okay, like you should stream on Twitch. I'm like, I like watching Twitch. I love Twitch, but I don't want to be in front of people. And I got on there, and I had this huge geology poster in my background and this periodic table, because at the time, 9 years ago, I was under the assumption you weren't allowed to do that kind of content. And I see Skylius on the front page of Twitch one day. I'm like, oh, you could do education? Because I'd already been talking about people asking questions of the periodic table of what I was researching on and whatever. And I just gave the information that I could. And that was officially when I was like, nope, I'm gonna do some education, but I'm also gonna keep some gaming. And it slowly transitioned to less and less and less gaming until I've just been fully doing geology for
Yeah.
about 8 or
Picked
9 or
up.
8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for years. And about around year 7 is when I met Dr. WD40, another content. He's a biologist with his PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I decided to make a list, just a Google Doc, of all the streamers that we could find that were educational. And so we knew about Skylius, and there were about 7 others with her, like Cosmo Quest and Horizon Psy and Demon Machine and some others. And we got about a list of, I think, 10 people.
Right.
And we finally started expanding, and EJSA, Das Valdez, and Muhoodles, and a variety of
Shout out. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right. They started coming up and wanting, like, we started finding them. They started finding us. Word got around about the name. We picked as a community. We actually, after we opened the Discord and even made the website, or before we made the website, we wanted to pick a community name. So that's what the community chose all together, was the Knowledge Fellowship.
Say the name again really quick, because I don't know if people caught it. Say it again.
The Knowledge Fellowship.
The Knowledge Fellowship. Boom. Yes.
Right.
Shout out to the Knowledge
So
Fellowship. You named a lot of cool people
Thank
that we admire and respect here on Building Stuff with Nova. Yeah.
I did for a while put my own stream on the back burner a bit so I could focus on that, because I really wanted to showcase every streamer I could that did education, because I always felt that the rising tide raises all boats.
Ships,
and that
indeed.
was my
Indeed.
That's always how I felt about it. And to this day, I'm just so proud of that community, and just so proud of all the content creators that are willing to take the time to do what they do.
I love
That's
it.
been my journey.
Go ahead and share. Y'all show some love. Get some applause to the Knowledge TKF. Of course, I just want to show. I'm showing some pictures of Garnet while you're switching your next rocks. Now, when it comes to Garnet, of course, thank you for kind of highlighting what you had there. But this is super durable. That's why it's used. It has very high what we call compressive strength. So it's like super. It can take a lot of pressing on it, right? And so it's used for things like flooring and things of that nature. But of course, obviously it has like that beautiful finish as well. So just want to point it out. A lot of monuments and things are made of granite, decorative applications, and the part that you don't see on buildings, and that is the foundation, right? What we're walking on a lot of times. So thanks for pointing that out, by the way. What do we have next, Alyssa? What do we have next?
This is a Dolomite, which is a sedimentary rock, very similar to limestone. It has been partially metamorphosed and would be better named a metadolostone, but just for the sake of simplicity, let's just keep it what it's called. This is called the Kona Dolomite.
Kona Dolomite.
Kona.
Okay.
It's from the Lindbergh Quarry, Marquette, Michigan. So this guy's from Michigan.
All right.
This beautiful piece. Yes. Yeah. And this guy, he is 2.2 billion years old. He's a very old rock, just like the banded iron formation I showed you. However, this is a different type of formation, different type of everything. So what's really even more interesting about this rock, and I'm so glad they all do kind of flow together, the ones I picked.
They are
great, because I've mentioned the cyanobacteria being the earliest life on Earth earlier, and they make up what are called stromatolites or algal mats. So they're basically just mats of algae that just top each other over and over and over until they make these tall linear features that we call stromatolites. So it's the billions of these cyanobacteria in one formation. Again, still forming today. First life on Earth, still around today. And there's evidence in this rock fossilized. It's the grayish bands. They tend to turn this gray, almost, if you were to see it with the naked eye, you would see it's almost got this translucence to it. It's not quite opaque. It's actually because of, again, the silica in the cyanobacteria. That's what's being essentially fossilized into a silica-rich structure that looks gray. So that's what that represents, is that fossil in these little wavy bands.
That's awesome.
The other, yes, and I love that this is fossilized, and there are actually several types of Kona dolostone. This is the one that I particularly have, and the dolostone does surround quite a large area, which also again indicates shallow marine environment. So there's so many things you can get out of a rock. It's like looking at a story. Like, what part of the history do you want to know?
Right.
And just flip to that page. It's just so fantastic. And so this guy, I'm going to keep it really simple. There are actually quite a few rock types that make it up, but I don't want to just throw a bunch of jargon at you guys.
Okay.
So we'll just stick with the fact that there's fossilized stromatolites. There's dolostone, which has been mostly metamorphosed. And all dolostone is compositionally different from limestone. Because it has some magnesium in it. That's it. Instead of just being calcium carbonate, it also has magnesium. That's it.
Okay.
But they look very similar in the field. They're sometimes more difficult to tell apart, but they can be with little tricks and tips that we have.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you said like this is particularly from Michigan. I'm like, I promise you, I've seen this rock somewhere else before, and it probably was like limestone that like was dubbing at this a little bit, but it's not quite. It's not the same thing. Yeah.
You can find rocks that are. You could find a rock that may look like this that's only 100 million years old versus 2 billion, right?
Yeah, that's a big difference though.
And it's at a different location. And
yeah.
It might look very similar, but maybe the red here is a jasper, or the red elsewhere is a completely different non-silicate based mineral. So there's all these little differences that literally each formation, there's always something slightly chemically different enough. Or a mineral that's different enough that you can tell these rocks apart. And if you have igneous material in there, in this case we don't, but if there's anything igneous, you can get a numerical age on that rock. The other rock types, they're more difficult to get actual ages on, for many reasons. But
well, that's honestly what I'm learning. A lot of what I'm learning from this is that there's small little subtle differences that makes the rock different. And as a structural engineer, I'm mainly thinking about the properties of it. Like something like this is beautiful. By the way, somebody said it looks like pizza, a dusty pizza.
It does.
Shout out to y'all in the chat that said that. But these little differences change the presentation and change the story behind it. Right. Even though there are similarities in perhaps how we would use it. Like something like this, the Dolomite rock, it's like a good facade, right? On the outside, if you wanted to give like that nice color, that natural sort of pink reddish color that we see here, that is likely the very popular use for something like this. A lot of these are just really popular in architectural applications. But when you tell the story behind it, Alyssa, like, that's what I think makes this so much more impressive too, because now there's sort of that whole scientific journey that it went through. Like you and I, right? Our story really adds meaning to even what we're doing now. We're both kind of collided here on this Twitch stream, building stuff with Nova, but our stories are different, and that adds context. So I think that's really dope. Absolutely. Everybody's loving it.
I love this piece. This is just gorgeous. This side is polished. Let me show you a non-polished side.
Oh, you got a non-polished side? Okay, cool. Okay. And I can see on the polished side what you meant about like the gray bands looking a little translucent when you look closely at it. Yeah.
Right.
That is totally neat.
And I'm happy to, show these anytime you catch me live. I am making a schedule eventually. And then I do have macro lenses, which will zoom into these things.
Yeah.
So if you want to see any of this stuff in more detail at a later date, I'm happy to show those.
Well, here's what I want to do, Alyssa.
Not under such a time constraint.
I want to get one more just cool rock for the road. As I'm about to take a moment and share what we got coming up. Chat, check out what we got coming up as Alyssa pulls up the next rock here on the screen. Go ahead and switch it out, Alyssa. But you all, as you see, we have RockItSage. We're just rocking out, as they said on Twitch. We're just chilling out here, rocking out with Sage. We love your community. Shout out to everybody that's came over from your channel and your community. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing an awesome stream all about sensors. We're going to be exploring sensors, show you how certain sensors are made. We're going to be rocking out continually. The rock continues on with Dr. Laura Bottomley. And then on Friday, we're going to be playing Minecraft. Now, today was at 1 p.m. Eastern. You may notice on our schedule here that Monday and Tuesday, we did 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do the same thing next week. Crew, we're going to do the same thing. On Monday and Tuesday, we're going to do 4 p.m. Eastern. But we're going to go back to our normal time. We're just testing out a few things as we get an idea of what works best for our community. But tomorrow's going to be at 1 p.m. Today we're at 1 p.m. Friday at 1 p.m. And we want to make sure that you hang out with us as we continue to build together. And with that being said, I think Alyssa is ready for us to see kind of one more rock for the road. What do we have here on the screen next to our Dolomite?
Let me get that. This is called a Tillite, which is a lesser known type of sedimentary rock, but they're very common.
Mm-hmm.
They are the result of glaciers melting. So, like I said, glaciers are like big pieces of sandpaper.
Right.
And the pieces that they pick up can be anywhere from boulder size to pebble, cobble, gravel, all the way down to silt and clay, sand, very smaller sizes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you this much. So when it comes to sediment and sizes, what I mean by sediment is just any piece of rock that's been broken down into its constituent elements, for the most part. And they can still be pieces of the rock, but a lot of times they'll break down into their constituent elements if the elements are big enough to break. And they'll continue to break down, and some boulders don't break down that much. And if you're ever at a stream or a river and you're up in a mountain of a river, notice that the rocks are so much bigger there, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been through a lot of energy or time yet to break down into all of the small stuff at the end of the river. Let's say it's going out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
So sediment is so funny. And this guy named Wentworth, I don't know, 80 years ago, I probably has defined a literal classification for the size of broken rocks.
Oh.
And we call it, right. And so that goes into this rock because it's a type of a conglomerate, which is a well-known sedimentary rock. So it isn't uncommon. It's just that isn't a commonly known name for a type of conglomerate. So what you see is that tiny, tiny gray, what we call cement or matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, as the word cement implies, it's kind of cementing the bigger pieces.
I love it. Yeah.
Right? Now, you can have tillites that have boulder-sized pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought up the size thing because boulders are literally defined to be bigger than 25.6 centimeters.
25.6. Wait, so
25 centimeters, they're bigger than 20.
Yeah, so this is a 25. This is a boulder size, I guess.
This is a little
No, I mean
guy.
like my hand, but that right there, yeah.
Yeah, so your hand.
Yeah, I mean the way that I was showing, like this would be classified as a boulder, 25 point.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Like your hand would fit more in the pebble class.
In the pebble class, yeah.
Literally, which is so silly. But anyway, that's why. Anyway, so boulders are classified, pebbles classified, sand classified. We don't need to get into the numbers. It's ridiculous. But basically conglomerates there's a ton of different size stuff all cemented together. That's really it. Broken pieces of rock of different sizes that are adhered together with the caveat of those pieces must generally be rounded.
Got it.
So you'll notice that there's no sharp, jagged edges. They don't have to be spherical, right?
They just need to be rounded.
It doesn't matter what the shape is.
Right.
They just need to be smooth. Like, look at the shape. This is not spherical whatsoever.
Right. But it's not like a plate. Smooth. It's not like a plate.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's got a ton of smaller sand-sized pieces in there. And most of those are actually jasper, which is a more colloquial name for basically a microcrystalline quartz with some iron in it that makes it red and opaque. It could be it's just that it would never form big 6-sided crystals, for example.
Well, I mean,
like quartz.
I mean, I love how, like, that's again where my field as engineer, we do a lot of concrete, and concrete is essentially larger rocks or aggregate, as we call it, cemented together in the matrix of the cement mix, right? And so to see that this was naturally formed, we learned so much from this, and we try to make our own rocks. Alyssa, you've really like opened our minds. Y'all show some love. We got some people that are moving. Shout out to you, Cap, Broken Symmetry. We see you. This is indeed educational content. Alyssa, I'm wondering if you can give us any parting words of wisdom, whether it be punny related to your rocks or just in general, because you have been a great guest today and everyone has enjoyed you both on YouTube and on Twitch. Anything you can say before we say goodbye?
I'd say that, oh my goodness. Celebrate and enjoy your day and yourself. And this is a hydro check, so drink your water, take your meds.
Yeah.
And just be kind to yourself. And thanks so much for being here and supporting the sciences and learning in general in such a beautiful way. I appreciate it.
Indeed. Y'all, we appreciate Alyssa, aka at RockItSage. It is coming through on Twitch. We see the emotes, all the love. Alyssa, you've been a phenomenal guest. Shout out to everybody across the internet on YouTube and on Twitch for hanging out with us today on Building Stuff with Nova. Again, we have a finale happening at the end of October that you can apply to be a part of. Just come over to Twitch and you'll see the application link in the chat where you get to be, you get to apply to be considered to maybe be one of our final escape room participants. It's happening at the end of October. We're gonna fly you to Boston, put you in a hotel. You're gonna meet me in person, meet the Nova team, hang out with Trapology, who's building the escape room as we speak, and help save the world for Y3K. So if that is interesting to you, make sure you click on the pinned comment on our Twitch channel. But until next time, you all, I learned so much about the stories of rocks, the classification of rocks. I want to again say thank you to RockItSage that helps me understand that all of the properties we have today, your durability, your strength, your ability to weather the storm and everything you're facing, is all part of your story. And so shout out to you all as you continue to grow as scientists, as engineers, as people, and may you and I continue to, as I always say at the end of the stream, to keep building. Y'all take care. See you next time. Peace.